St. Juan's home for the ADD.
And no collection of rocket failures is complete without the infamous Vanguard, the biggest explosion of 1957. Episode 3, we are going to space today. We're going to space this episode. We are not willing to ignore. Trinity almost made it into space. What was different? Because Crossroads Able was a total failure. So what's the difference here? We got 505 kilograms. And what was Crossroads Able? It's 2 tons. 550 kilograms. You need batteries anyway, so... So can we just slap a booster under you? Stop. Hammer time. Failures like this don't even get to keep their names. The old Crossroads Able is an unrocket. Behold the new, the one, the only Crossroads Able. With it, we will try to go to space. Yeah, that would be a problem, so let's throw some more fins. We have a stability margin of about 1/10 of a caliber, but that's okay. In our world, sounding rockets like this were originally the domain of the military, and in artillery, the caliber is the diameter of a projectile. Since they thought of these as artillery, they measure the stability in calibers. If the center of pressure is behind the center of mass by 1 diameter of the body, that's 1 caliber of stability margin. We had about 1/10. On the real-world sounding rockets that I worked with, they made sure that the stability margin was present through all stages of flight, no matter how much propellant there was on board. We probably should have checked that, too. Check your staging. And 3, 2, 1, go. If we had thrown an engineering chip on this thing, we could have gotten a real-time apogee, apocurb, apo-apps. There's more than one way to do that. And you are going to space today! Oh yes. Except for breaking all the fins off. Oh, I just noticed that little chain over there looks kind of like Hawaii when you look at it this way. No antennas. So, well, we're in space. Now, the sounding rockets that I worked with, they were purely scientific. They carried aloft a copy of a solar instrument that is currently in space on board the Solar Dynamics Observatory. It's an ultraviolet instrument that only works in vacuum. So all we had to do was pop it up above the atmosphere for 5 minutes to test it, to calibrate it, and then by having the instrument on the satellite look at the same sun at the same time, we could transfer the calibration all the way to the satellite. And that's the science that we collected in real life. I don't know how many sciences that is. And how much into space did we get? Oh, so very much into space. So much so we might be able to get some high orbit or high space stuff. But we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to ready the parachute in case I forget, because that'll happen. And back to my real life sounding rocket story. So the sounding rockets that I worked with, they did go into space. They went up to 285 kilometers, which is space even in the real world scale. And it took about 15 minutes from launch to landing. And it got up to Mach 7 about 90 seconds after launch, after the 2 stages had finished firing, which is about 2,100 meters per second or so, maybe 2,400 meters per second. And almost as fast as this one, and it had no problem. It had no heat shield whatsoever. It just came down on its aluminum body, but it was spun up so that no one part of the body was facing towards the wind for too long. Plummeting back towards the ground. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Back into the atmosphere and tail first. Yeah, we're going to get pretty hot here because we're going pretty fast, but even more importantly, we're going very steep. So we're going to hit that wall of air a lot harder than we would next time that we get up here and plan on going in from orbit. So we haven't even slowed down barely at all, but we're starting to cook the booster here. Oh, and now we're starting to cook the parachute. And we're going to lose an experiment. Nope. Okay, they're all going to make it. But we're going to hit the ground too hard. Ah! Yep. So based on the real rocket experience, what I should have done in this entry is not pointed tail first, but instead turned it on its side and then spun it up around its axis as fast as we could. Use up all the rest of the power, or all the rest of the cold gas, which is what the real rockets would use when they were in space. Use cold gas nitrogen jets in order to control their attitude, and in order to keep the people on the ground, the people in the recovery crews, safe from the high pressure gas in there. They used it all up, spinning up the payload as it fell back towards the Earth. It came back down, it popped its parachute at about 20,000 feet, and then it fully disreefed at about 15,000 feet and spent about the next 4 or 5 minutes drifting on the parachute. I think it's a good thing that this game does it such that the parachute, you don't hang on the parachute in this game as long as you do in real life, and that's okay. So first off, your first science lesson for today is that we don't have enough science. So, but re-entry heating. Re-entry heating is not from friction, or at least the majority of it's not. It's from compression. Anytime that you compress a gas, it gets hotter. And so what's happening when you have a hypersonic re-entry like this is that you're coming in so fast that the air, which can only feel things running through it at the speed of sound, doesn't have enough time to get out of the way. And that's what the problem is. So what do we want to do next? Check our contracts. In-flight, splashdown, in-flight, or orbiting, suborbital. That one will be easy. I really like the ones that say Hall, but we don't have too many of those. So, are we going to try and go to orbit again? Are we feeling ambitious? Are we feeling lucky? We are. New page. Probodobodyne and a couple of batteries. This one I think is going to end up being one of our workhorses. It's going to have plenty of delta V. Don't you worry about that. Put a coupler on it. 18A or 18D? Throw one of those down there. It's on 18A. It's still experimental. Throw another one of you. And another swivel. And then some couplers. As low as we got. How low can you go? And then, well, hammers. We could put a thumper on there, but our launch pad isn't big enough. This launch pad ain't big enough for the two of us. And I heard that these things are just for show and they don't actually have any effect. But if Sandstone here is going to be one of our workhorses, well, I say it's a workhorse, but we don't even know that yet. So we got plenty of power. No, we've got no power. Power, power, power. No, I don't need that big of a thing. Do we have any cool solar panels? Nope. So we're going to make the relay bot. Doesn't need quite so many antennas, but it does need that'll work. That'll work nicely. Now can we do fairings? Don't remember where fairings live. There it is. So we'll go ahead and put a fairing on the bottom. And we'll just, okay, we'll widen it a little bit. And then come straight up. There we go, no secondary payloads, because this doesn't need any secondary payloads. Too heavy! Well, I think I know how we're going to fix that. Now we don't have to worry about too heavy. In fact, because of that, we will go ahead and upgrade the boosters. know we're going to need these. So we're going to take those instead of nose cones. Because we're not going to need nose cones for very long. But we'll need these through the entire atmosphere. And that's all the parts we have. Can't even afford an engineering chip. Yeah, I know what we're going to do. We're going to take some of these solar panels off. You'll notice the lack of decoupling between these things and the lack of re-entry. Well, the lack of re-entry is because I don't plan on this ever coming back. And the lack of detach is because there's going to be plenty of fuel left in the upper stage. So we'll be able to move this thing around as the circumstances dictate. I'm going to put any sciences on this thing. Do we have any parts left to put some sciences on this thing? Put an engineering chip on it because we have room. And we'll go ahead and so we'll throw some sciences on it to get some in-orbit science. Let's go fly it. Check yo staging because I know I didn't do that. Throttle up. So that's our important guy. Three, two, one. Now here's where we get to talk about the theory and practice of ascent to orbit. So we fly up straight for a little bit because the rocket's pointed straight up, and then we execute what's called a gravity turn. Well, not exactly. We'll talk about that later. What we do for the first little bit of the flight is that we pitch over at a constant rate, but not a constant rate with time, because I don't really want to watch the clock. What I use instead is the velocity there. And so I say to myself, well, every 100 meters per second we go up, I want to pitch down 10 more degrees. I might pick some other number like 120 or 150. And that's what I do during the boost stage and during some of the first stage. Basically, whenever that formula says we're pointing above the velocity vector here, that's what we do. Now, when we start pointing below the velocity vector, we just turn on prograde again, or we just let the fins take care of it. And when it's going prograde like this, this is when it's in a gravity turn. Now what's actually turning in a gravity turn is that the rocket's flying some diagonal like this, and gravity is keep pulling on it. And so as time goes on, the direction the rocket is traveling is going to get lower and lower and lower. Now the direction the rocket is pointing is totally controlled by the control system. It could do anything it wants. As you can see here, I'm doing anything that I want. I'm pointing it low, I'm pointing it high, I'm pointing it whatever. But in a pure gravity turn, the control system makes sure to point the nose of the rocket directly into the wind. But as the rocket flies, that direction gets lower and lower and lower. And the idea is you get a nice smooth curve from going up above the atmosphere to going sideways to pick up all that orbital velocity you need in order to throw yourself at the ground and miss. So what I do then is use the booster, the first stage, and as much of the second stage as I need to get the APA curb at about 75 kilometers. But I like to do it, I like to tilt things over so that the horizontal velocity is as much as possible. I'll play around. I've been playing around with this for a while, figured out that, yeah, usually about between 100 and 150 meters per second per 10 degrees in the first tilt will work fine. You know, a real world rocket It usually doesn't do this kind of boost and then coast and then boost. It boosts all the way up into orbit except for the Orbital Sciences Antares booster, which has a long coast phase because it has a solid fueled, very high impulse third stage. Do I not have any wheels on this thing? Oh, it does have some. It's going to go ever so slowly. And welcome back to space. This time we stay. Now you see that tumbling there after boost. I'm not terribly concerned about it because we're above the atmosphere, it doesn't matter. We lost a lot of control when our engine shut down and we had only these tiny little wheels to control us. Come on, come on. We're going to turn on our engines here early just to get some control authority. And we're going to watch for that periapse. Orbit has been achieved. Now, you'll notice that we're not very close to circular. We got plenty of delta V here. We're not even close to circular, which is as intended. So, because a low circular orbit is not a great spot for a single antenna. In fact, we are about to lose contact with it. There it goes. Lost contact. So that'll wrap up this episode. This has been Quan3217. Stay Kerbin, my friend. I mean, if at first you don't succeed, fly again.